Okay, folks, the recording has started. So by continuing to be in this meeting and you're consenting to be recorded. So welcome everyone to a Data 460, Section 6980, Module 4 webinar, which is the final webinar of this course. Wow, 7 weeks have gone by, right? And if you had been here earlier than the course started, then it would be close to, I would say, 8 weeks now that you would have been part of this course. And I hope all the modules that you've gone through, including the module 4, that you are halfway through, that you have thoroughly enjoyed this course. And before I forget, folks, I do want to mention your feedback is very important to us. Your questions are important to us because, like, all the language models that you've been, hearing about for the last few months, and with all the popularity of those language models, of the large language models, the feedback is so important. What you are kind of, feeding to these LLMs, it's what you're kind of getting back, right? And that quality is how the quality is going to be improved and how it's going to get better. And same thing here. We could get better with your feedback. So if there's anything, please do not forget to complete the survey and ensure that it's completed before the course ends. Okay, so we'll be looking forward to that. And do not worry, it doesn't penalize in any way. It's always objective, and it's nothing, really goes out to, hey, did Chase write did Steve write this? No, that's far from it. That's not the intent of this survey. But as I said, though, what we could do better as an instructor, or how we impart instruction for this course, or the material that you've gone through, or whatever, if there's anything on your mind. Okay. So with that, let me, as soon as my screen starts working here. So now this is more of a formality slide, and now we've been a small class and we've always had a small crowd here. So not much to really go over this slide, except that just reiterating that we'd be done. Hopefully we should be done within an hour today, or a little more if needed to. But I'll just try to keep it short. And understand that this is the final week for you, and not just for this course, and maybe some of you taking more than this course as well. So I'll be sensitive to and be respectful of your time, and not go over much. Okay, so with that, the agenda for today, we'll talk about a little bit about IVAs and LLMs again. I know you've been bombarded with a lot of material. You read a lot of articles. You gone through a lot of videos. You engaged in a lot of discussions, and then you posted with after all that research. So I'll just keep it light, but this is going to be more of a, you could say, a portion where I'll try to mix it with a little bit of not getting too much into theory, or not too much about presenting, but trying to make it in a good combination of a little bit of theory as well as some practical as well. And also knowing your thoughts is going to be important. Assignment 4, yes, we'll talk about that as well. And then finally, of course, again, we'll talk if there are any questions you have, not just for this module, for this course, for the future courses, or for even beyond this degree as well. Okay, so we'll talk about that soon. And first things first, before we get into talking about IVAs and LLMs. So, well done on your assignment 3. I think this was by far and the best ever chart that I presented in a class where everybody has done a fantastic job. You guys followed all the instructions to the T, and boom. I couldn't take off any points for anything, because it's all you had to kind of plug things correctly, and you did it in style. So again, a great job. So I'll be looking for an encore. Okay. Again, week 7 was one of the most exciting discussion weeks. And I think folks are getting better with what you're presenting, what you're posting after good research, and your thoughts. You're mixing up well with your thoughts and seeing things from other articles and all that. So you're kind of mixing it well. And plus, you kept up with the spirit of engagement and participation. So Great job there. And I think just continue with this, folks. Please do not let this be limited to only this course, but if there are any courses left or you take further for your masters, this is going to get more intense, guys. If especially, if you're thinking about masters, there will be discussions there as well. And they could be a little more intense, right? There could be more depth that may be required. So I think you there, and I think you are hitting to that gold standard that we kind of look for. Okay, so good job there. And then finally, as I keep saying, attend webinar. This is the last webinar of this course, but any other courses offering webinars, please, make use of it. This is the time that you could come up here, and sometimes, we could just be your questions that could be addressed here, more because not more of a concept or any of that sort, but as I said, we try to supplement it. I do that as well, try to supplement it or come up with thoughts, ideas that I'd like to share, or maybe know your thoughts and ideas, or maybe brainstorm certain things here. So, keep up with that as well. All right. So if you recall, and if you had watched the welcome video of this module 4, then you probably remember this screen here, right? I think I started off with this particular slide, and I said, okay, if you know that this is becoming so popular. So I want to know, I know Chase and Steve, especially since you guys are here, want to know from you guys, what are your thoughts? Anything that's on your mind about these assistants, the Alexas and Googles and Apple Series that are there, that are becoming so popular that it's almost like a decade. What do you think is happening? What do you think is how things are going with these things?
I think the one thing that I'm noticing is that these IVAs in the form of Alexa, Hey Google, or Siri are honestly getting outmoded by these LLMs that are coming out. That LLMs like ChatGPT and all these competitors were the next stage of that process, because still Alexa, Google, and Siri are not able to make the assessments and computations that these LLMs are in a more fluid way. Like it still feels like a stilted process. So I feel like these are kind of the first step of an emerging field in a way. So I see all of these either integrating into a more complex LLM model or being replaced by a more complex LLM type model. And then we'll see where it evolves from there. But I know it's going to be companies like these that are going to be primarily sharing the ownership of this type of technology.
So you're saying that it's probably losing its shine a bit with the advent of LLMs in the market now, and all the talk about these LLMs, that maybe these smart assistants are no longer that valued as, or maybe they're losing out. Is that what you are trying to say, Chase? Is that correct?
Essentially, it's just that they're just getting outmoded by the complexity of what these LLMs are still a bit. Granted, they can still make incredible answers, calculations, what have you, but they don't have the depth of these LLMs, which in turn also still lacks some depth. So even though this stuff has still been pushed out for a consumer market, we're not going to see the fluidity of AI assistants that we see in sci-fi for at least maybe another 10 plus year, maybe sooner with the rate of this, because the reality is that Moore's law is simply not accurate anymore. It's just not. Like, it's just like, I don't know what the new Moore's law should be, but the rate at which this type of technology improves upon, or is improved on, and improves upon itself, is just accelerating exponentially.
Yeah. Okay. No, good. Steve, what do you think?
I agree. I think they're, 5, 6, 7 years ago, these were the big things. These was, advanced technology, but now they're kind of like given, that you just kind of use them if you need them. I personally turn them off because I'm not a big fan of the system's listening to everything I'm saying. But I've made some mistakes with Hey Siri, where I've sent text messages accidentally to the wrong people. So, so I keep those things turned off. But that's where I feel like there's a little bit of flaw when it comes to those particular systems versus other more advanced tools that you can lean on. But I try to. Yeah, I agree. It's something that's every day. It's always new technology coming out. So.
No, this is good. So do you think that, with the LLMs, that, if the LLMs, or if these smart assistants kind of start making use of LLMs, and they're underneath, they're powered by these LLMs, that they would gain more significance again, or they could come back and not lose its shine or the market? Do you think it would be even more powerful than what they are today?
I mean, essentially, but then I think Steve was kind of touching upon a really good point of figuring out where the general public can have an input of, or some degree of informed consent, because the reality is, by design, these devices are supposed to listen to you, but at the same time, people like Steve and myself want to avoid these devices listening to you. But the problem is, these companies, all three of them are in this picture, are going to be listening to you anyway. So do you either want to be—
I was just going to say that, right? Okay, great point.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So do you either want to be a willing participant in the reduction of your own privacy to satisfy market needs, or how do you, or even then, like, how do you even get your own agency back with this? Because I feel like these technologies are immensely useful, but like, you sacrifice so much agency, more than you're being made aware of with this. And there's an element of concern with these technologies as they're continually refined upon.
Yeah, no, you're so right. And the privacy is going to be huge, and we'll try to see if we can touch upon that briefly later. But just going by that, and I think, Steve, you brought up an excellent concern about not being listened to. But Chase, you also mentioned that even if we go away from these, and let's say just talk about ChatGPT, because that's becoming a rage now. People are using it left and right, and everything, they're just throwing it to the wall, or to the other side of the wall, and trying to get answers to, which is good. And now it's good. It's helping. But sometimes I feel that it's not even helping. But that's another point. But the point I'm trying to make is that a lot of information that we are sharing on social media or to these AI devices, they are capturing everything that you say. Even if the shit that you just talk to them, it's being captured, right? And same thing goes as, with these phones, right? We have these smartphones we go around with. They've been doing this for longest time. Ever since this smartphones have been around, they've been tracking so much about us. They know so much about us that, sometimes, yes, if they are not been using that and holding on to that data, fine. I don't know how much of that data is being held, but yeah, there's a lot of fine print that comes along, and I can read it and find out. But my point is, again, there's a lot that is captured without without us knowing about it. Even though we have consented or not consented, we sometimes do not think too much about it. But yeah, you're right. I mean, all these AI devices or applications, systems, that we will be touching upon, or we are touching upon today, that concern would always remain. But again, I think these devices, again, the smart assistants, they are there for specific tasks, right? I would love, Alexa to, say, keep me busy, and I don't want to sometimes think about, which music want to listen to, or what do you want to hear. And I say, okay, Alexa, just, probably they've kind of come up with a good mix of things for me that to kind of listen to, or things of that nature. Sometimes it's helpful, but again, I would like to restrict it to, that usage, and not get into too much of a serious usage of these smart assistants. Okay. But, who knows, when time goes, and we'll be, slaves of these things again. But we'll find
kind
out.
of like a catch-22. Like, you don't want to really use them, but the more you use them, the more data they collect. So the more data they collect, the more accurate they can be. So it's something that these LLMs could be super powerful tools. With massive amounts of data.
Yeah.
But you have to give them the data in order to be accurate. So
Yeah. So yeah, where do you draw the line, Steve? Right? I mean, and I think you are at you guys, I really, I think you guys are at that, a perfect juncture of these technologies all coming out. I mean, I thought I was probably the most luckiest to be in, starting my career when or when it was close to the internet boom and the web and all that stuff, and so wow, all these things changed, this revolutionized the world. You are getting into your career here, and all this AI stuff. My God, this is like, it's a much bigger revolution. Of course, the engine behind it still the internet and stuff, but yes, that is still the basic infra that was already built few years back. But how, and nobody envisioned things that have taken place within the last few years. But anyway, this is good. So thank you for sharing your thoughts on this. And now I think we kind of touched upon a lot on IVAs and conversational AIs, right? So we already were, talking about it. So may not want to go deeper into the chat AI. But yeah, I think, what do you think? What's going on with Chat GPT, guys? What do you think? And this, it's been around for now 8 months, probably. Yeah, around 8 months. I think it came out in late November or sometime around November, December timeframe. So thinking about that, what do you think? What has changed in the last 7 to 8 months?
I think the big push is that during GPT-3, there was an enormous push to essentially jailbreak it and to go into different role play scenarios to where it could violate its own standards and guidelines. And GPT-4 was made as a countermeasure to that. And so GPT-4 to a lot of people feels dumber than GPT-3, but it seems like to be some sort of reaction. So I think the other challenge for us going forward using this technology is that it's forcing data science, or it will force our hands to be a lot more politically involved, for lack of a better term, because a lot of these jailbreak methods are there to reinforce biases of racism, sexism, misogyny, like all these different kind of societal problems are being, we're forcing that training upon chat GPT models right now. And so I think that's an enormous problem that I think data scientists will have to address individually of what side of this do you want to be upon? But other than that, I think, I mean, yes, it's a fascinating emerging field, but unfortunately, it's just, I feel like there are a lot of nefarious actors who are seeking to corrupt this thing while it's still in its infancy. And that definitely concerns me a lot.
Yeah. No, that's good thought. Thanks, Chase. Steve, do you have anything to add here?
I think the technology's created more or less like a foundation to some bigger things. It's great to be able to use that as a Google tool, or whatever you want to use first to try to Google to try to find different information. But what I think is going to be very exciting is when you can bring that tool over to a particular organization and have them have a chat tool where they can go through some sensitive data that they can't publish anywhere else. But you can say, I want to find, give me the highest sales in this region over this amount of time, and it just pop out that information instantly. And it's trained on that internal data. So you have your own organizational chat GPT in a way. So, but it's only your particular organization's data, which I think is going to be a very awesome tool to be able to kind of have internally. So,
yeah. We implemented
for example, what I do,
organization.
I can't, you can't put things in any kind of online tools or whatever because everything's very confidential and sensitive. So you have to kind of, you can't even Google certain things. So but having something internally, I think that would be a really awesome.
Yeah. But what are your thoughts on a couple of things that you may have also read? And I'm assuming, guys, that you've been a user of ChatGPT in the past or still are. I'm assuming that. If not, please, let me know. But I'm assuming that, what have you seen? Have you noticed, or like people saying that, the quality of output is not the same as what it was, a few months back? Or it's some of the information is not factual at all and not correct. Is that something that you've noticed, you've observed?
Absolutely. But I think it's part of it is that OpenAI, I guess if we're sticking just with Chat GTP and not the whole field of LLMs, is doing this as a reaction to push back on the sort of nefarious bad faith actors who are seeking to, again, corrupt this in its infancy. And so I think a lot of what we've seen, or that people have absolutely noticed, and I've noticed it too, of the dumbing down of its capabilities seems to be reactionary to that. It could be for other reasons, for whatever reasons the market necessitates, but that's what I've seen. But at the same time, I think Steve was kind of touching upon something about companies using internal resources to create their own Chat GTP models. And it makes me wonder, it's just like, will they then be able to have this locally sourced, or are they going to also use some sort of cloud hosting through, be it through like a service like AWS or whoever hosts this AI? But also, I think going back earlier to the prior topic of like chat assistants, I think what could be a fascinating topic is people starting to build their own small, little, very, very local purpose networks that are just solely designed to customize lights, music, like local hardware around the home, in terms of a smart home interface that just is designed to work a smart home interface and doesn't collect your data for anything else. And then when it can query for other things, it can then branch out beyond like a local home server to a much larger cloud server, which can then bring you like music and other things to it, but without infringing on too much of the privacy elements. And so I wonder if we're going to see a similar tool with LLMs that way, that we could see more local ones that can answer a lot of questions. But the problem with LLMs is that they use some tremendous volumes of knowledge and data that they have to source across. So unfortunately, it's just LLMs, I think, are going to be by design something that's going to have to be externally hosted or cloud hosted or what have you. So I mean, it's just we'll see where this technology goes, but I think
currently it's a big fat elephant. Like if you want
it does.
I mean, the real kind of a ChatGPT, but again, we'll kind of walk you through something real quick, and I'm going to just walk you through a couple of code pieces that is something that would probably touch upon what you just mentioned, Chase. Can we build something of our own, right? And what does it take really to build something of our own, right? And of course, this is just something very rough. But again, just before we leave this topic, I don't know if you've read about this, but there was an article on, I think, was it in LinkedIn or somewhere? It's about AI hallucination. Do you recall, and anyone, Chase or Steve or AO or Teo, have you guys seen that or read that article before? If not, I'll just kind of briefly explain, let you know. So it talks about, like, when this came out, right? A lot of when it, especially for the programmers, that it tells you a lot of coding. I think it did a fantastic job, and people were almost saying, like, few months back, that, or maybe they're still saying, hey, programmers' jobs are gone and done because everything can be just generated through ChatGPT, and it can give you all the code, and it has now got the code interpreter and all that stuff. But anyway, so my point is, and code interpreter, by the way, it's kind of almost like, does your entire machine learning project. And I wish we had time to kind of walk through that. I did that once, and I was amazed at how code interpreter can do that. But if you're really interested, there are a lot of good YouTube videos on that. And you can watch that. But coming back to AI hallucination, so when it gives you out this code, it sometimes brings up the names of certain packages. Let's say it's a Python program, and it comes up with a package that may be still under development, and maybe the link is given to something that still does not exist, right? But it is kind of just saying that because it learned it from somewhere, and it just posted that package name. Now, the bad actors are the ones who really pounce on these. These are the active great opportunities for the bad actors, because they would then plug in a particular, that same package name. Let's say if some XYZ, they would create a package and with that exact name, and with all the malicious code as part of that package. And then when ChatGPT is kind of serving that, again, the output with that same package name, now you are going to a package that has got all the malicious code in it. But you did not doubt, ChatGPT's abilities. You did not doubt its output, and you'd say, well, everything that ChatGPT is given, wow, it's perfectly right. Let me just use it, and boom, there you go, right? You made that mistake. So it was a wonderful thing that it says it hallucinates. It thinks about things that are still not existing and letting it out to you. And it's hallucinating based on, hearsay or whatever it may have. Somewhere it got the knowledge that there's this package being built, but it's not built, and yet it serves it to you, right? So anyway, it was a wonderful article. I mean, it was much more than what I'm saying, guys. It just caught my attention completely. I just dropped everything and I read through that. And at time I was smiling, and it felt hilarious that how, such a wonderful technology could be just turned around and, beaten up. So yeah, again, I hope it doesn't go that route and doesn't become rogue at any point in time. So, but I hope things would be better shape. I think there are some checks and balances still in place, some controls in place that will still work against those bad actors, and does not let this nice, wonderful technology go rogue at any point in time. So looking forward to that. Okay, so as I was just talking about, just wanted to have this little bit of a discussion session, but I want to kind of walk you through a couple of code. Again, the idea is not to understand that code completely, guys. So far from it. So you don't have to, really pay too much attention to, but I'm just going to walk you through very, very quickly. And so I'm going to stop sharing my screen here and then kind of bring that up and share my screen back again. So just bear with me for a moment as I kind of get to that, wherever that is. And I have to I think I got it. Okay, now back to Zoom and back to sharing. Where did my share go? Oops. Sorry, guys. Running into some technical difficulties with sharing my screen here. Oh, okay. I see what's happened here. Okay. Okay. All right. Finally, appreciate your patience. So just going through this few chunks of code here. And, some of this, you'd understand it right away. You've done this, you worked with NLTK package. So I'm not going to, again, beat you guys up with anything of this code, what it does. But anyway, this is more of, you using the NLTK package. And what you're doing here next is you're making a small data set with, some text in it, some text being thrown in as data. And then you are tokenizing that data. You're making it a list of all tokens. And then what you're doing it is you're making, pre-processing the tokenized text for bigrams modeling. Bigrams meaning 2 words, right? So based on 1 word, what could be the percentage of the next word following it, right? That's what we are trying to get here. So we are building the language model here, and the model that we are bringing in, you're using is you're building it, and then you're trying to generate a sequence of 10 words, right? You're generating a sequence of 10 words, and the random seed is just to make sure it gives you the same sequence every time. Or the same output, basically. That's only reason, but it gives you a sequence of 10 words. So what it does is it takes in a chunk of data, it tokenizes the entire text. It then builds a model. It builds a model with understanding which word can go after the other word, like what is the next the word in the sequence. And based on that, it is going to throw up a bunch of words which could go in a sequence, which it thinks it may, right? And this is a very, very rough and very simple and a very general code. But what you've ended up doing here, folks, this is what a language model is, right? This is in a very simplest form, a language model, right? And then, I just kind of started to kind of just putting up here another, a chunk, same code here, just put up another data. This is our small text data set. It talks about data 460. I just threw in something about saying, hey, it's an advanced artificial intelligence service solutions course, blah, blah, blah. And this course focuses on, all these different elements of modules that you had. Same thing, tokenize the text, pre-process the tokenized text for bigrams modeling. You model it with the maximum likelihood estimator, the likelihood of the next word, knowing what the previous word is, and then print out the sequence of 10 words, and it picked up its sequence of 10 words. So, again, going based on what it sees one word and what it sees later on. If it sees off, it says Maryland. If it says Maryland, then global would be the next. If it says global, then the campus should follow it. So again, it is in a very basic form a language model. So the reason I brought this up here, guys, and I know you would have probably even coded it much in an advanced fashion or form in this or the previous course. But the point I'm trying to make is a language model could be as simple as this. Of course, we had lots of bells and whistles, and we'll talk about what are large language models. But again, we throw in a lot more data, we throw in a lot more parameters, we throw in and get more accuracy out of this, particular out of a language model. Okay, so let me stop sharing. But again, the idea was not to go through the code line by line, but wanted to just kind of show it to you that, language model, I don't want you to get too much hyped up about saying, oh my God, if somebody tells you to build a language model, what is it going to take for you to do that? Well, this is a language model, right? In the simplest form. So, okay. All right. So let me stop sharing. But before that, any questions before I just take off the screen from here?
Not for me.
Okay.
Yeah,
okay.
Not for me either.
Okay, excellent. Let me go back to my. Okay. So, and again, what I was just showing, the reason I also said you don't have to really, and I would not take any credit for the code that was put up there. Of course, I did add in some pieces of code there, but again, the main source was, and I wanted to give credit to the person here, Vishwanatha Aligunti, who was kind of just showed it, and he's kind of said, just creating an LLM, simple, basic language module or a model program. And this was on LinkedIn, by the way, not too long ago. This was just, and I think end of last, just a couple of days back, I put it up there. And I said, wow, this is good. I mean, this is how simple it could be. I mean, sometimes we think and we want to kind of put up such a huge complex piece of code that thinking that this is how a language model should be, right? But no, language model is this, let's start with this first and then add to it, okay? So what are large language models? So in the most basic form, language model designed to produce the next best word, iteratively taking the context of text as input and producing the next best word. That's basically what it is doing. Now, when it is kind of behind, when it is going to be, used by a chatbot, and and if it uses this model, it becomes like a Chat GPT. Chat GPT is using a GPT language model, that is providing the not just the response which is being generated based on the fact that it knows what words it needs to generate and what word has been generated and what should be the next in the sequence. The term large depicts the size of the parameters of the model that go up to several 100 million or billions. This is where I say it's a big white elephant at the moment, because as Chase, you just mentioned, the computing resources or the power it needs, the amount of data that it would take. Sometimes you feel like you'd probably spend like if you had to just kind of compare yourself, a human, with what Chat GPT has done, a human could probably take 25 years to really get some degrees and accumulate all that knowledge and knowledge base that a Chat GPT or a GPT kind of a model processes. Well, why is that the GPT, if you look at the Chat GPT, came out in November, December of last year, but it has data of September 2021. Why do you think they did not came out with something which is of like September 2022, right? Why did they had something of a previous year? Thoughts, Steve or Chase?
Could you repeat the question again, please?
So when ChatGPT came out, right? It came out last year, November or December 2022, right?
Yep.
It has, and it tells you that many a times when you ask the question, it says, hey, my knowledge is up to September 2021. So meaning it has all the knowledge base and everything, all that information it had until end of September 2021, correct? Why do you think it came up with that? Why didn't it have the data until September 2022?
Because otherwise they'd still be working with an exponentially growing source. They have to give it a cutoff so then they could reduce the amount of data trained to something that is finite, at least, because otherwise, if you leave it open-ended, it's literally infinite. Like there would be no boundary. You have to have some sort of boundary of the data. Otherwise, you're just training on something that doesn't have a boundary. And so I guess that means the future of LLMs will be something that inherently does not have boundaries such as time to it.
Yeah, I think
incredible.
You're hitting to the right thing there. It's also the time frame it takes for them to process all that wealth of knowledge.
It gives it a full year's worth of data.
It takes months to build that model with all that computing resources. Think about that. That's terabytes and terabytes of data that needs to be processed. And that really takes all the time. If a human takes, let's say, 25 plus years to gain that and process that kind of knowledge, it takes few months of time for like a GPT kind of model. And that's the reason why it is not, it is again, it's like, yes, it's huge. That's the reason why it's not coming up with like every month, oh, we have data from a previous month, up to previous month. No, it cannot do that, because if it's probably doing that. I'm not saying it's not doing so, please don't quote me on that. But what I'm saying is that if it has to bring up another version, it takes in few months to kind of take in all that information after September 2021. Takes few months to process that and bring it out in the market. So maybe the next version, again, they will have added more months, but they may not be like yesterday, until yesterday, right? So again, and that's where they had the plugins kind of where you could even add the what do you call the web crawlers or the web searches added to it, so that it could still go on and search the web for the latest and greatest information of certain things that you've asked, because it did not have the knowledge beyond September 2021. But again, it's about what I'm trying to say is this the magnanimity of this particular of this model, right? It's billions of parameters, tons of data. you crank it up no matter like us, I think the amount of, and as somebody, I think you probably must have gone through one of the videos, I think on the Chat GPT, as it's there part of your coursework. And it's kind of talked about that, all this, they think about all the servers that have been put into play to kind of build this model. It's going to be huge. It would have taken up a lot of energy resources to do that. But anyway, so that's what it is. And again, this is not something that just happened, right? Yes, what you saw just happened. Yes, the last 5 years has been, the most, productive, critical, or whatever it is. But things started way back in 1960s, right? And I'm sure you've read through it. So I'm going to just glance through this slide and quickly skim through this slide. But you can see that the timeline of these language models from 1960s, 1990s, and deep learning came out in 2010, which is not too far behind, right? We are all talking about most of the things happening. The most happening was, it was the decade, before the end of the century and a decade after the beginning of the century. Those 20 years were the most critical when things happened. Everything, this whole technology, right from internet to web to all the statistical models to machine learning algorithms to deep learning, all of that, and that leading to introducing BERT for the first time, and then the OpenAI comes into play. They introduced GPT model, right? And of course, GPT has been around for a few years. Those models have been around for a few years, but it did not become popular until the Chat GPT came out, right? And Chat GPT is absolutely just went on to revolutionize things now. Now that you have APIs to kind of get access to to the GPT models, or to even Chat GPT, you have APIs for both. So what's the difference between generative AI and models versus large language models? So as far as the similarities go, both these type of models use deep learning techniques, right? And generative AI, like basically it generates any type of data, right? It's images, sound, text, everything. But when it comes to large language, they are focused solely on language related tasks, right? But again, similarity wise, they both use lots of data and to be trained to get that high level of performance. They take a lot of computing resources and time, and they both, these types of models, they use deep learning kind of techniques and neural networks and so on. The difference is, of course, the large language models are solely focused on generating human-like text and completing language-related tasks. They're based on transformer-based architectures. There are billions and trillions of parameters, and they're mostly used for NLP type applications. So that's the general difference. I mean, yes, you could call it as a generative AI or the LL models, but there's just a subtle difference between the two. Now, as far as this was a nice, and I once again, everything that I put it up here, guys, I will always put up the source for it. So you'll see it as part of the slides, and you can see the source for it. So again, this was a nice blog article that I saw, and it was a wonderful one. It was very timely. That if you look at all the different the best AI chatbots that it talked about, and it had like a leader, of course, Chat GPT is leading the pack here, but runner up, Google Bard, you have Hugging Chat, Zapier AI chatbot. Zapier AI chatbot was excellent. I mean, I love the Zapier AI chatbot for one of the things that you could, using an interface, you could build your own chatbot, AI, you can build your own Chat GPT kind of, chatbot, which was nice. And we'll show it to you very quickly on, how you could do it with even with just programmatically as well. But again, if you want to kind of just, do it in a more simpler form, Zapier AI chatbot is the link that you want to just go to. And of course, all the other links that are out there. I mean, this is just a very, very small sample of chatbots that are out there that has been, and this has been powered by, GPT kind of models here, large language models, or, using that sort. But if you look at, there's another LinkedIn, there was a nice this view picture that was kind of put up there, and it caught my attention again to saying, and I know it may not be coming up on your screen very well because it has got so many of them, but these are all the, AI apps that are out there. And these are just the popular ones. I'm not even touching, and this doesn't even touch all those ones that are not so popular or not so known by everyone. But looking at all the different domain areas, like, videos or marketing and chatbot and design and writing, they've given a plethora of it. There's a huge suite of applications that are out there in the market today, that everybody, based on their industry or their domain area or what they need to kind of get through things done through AI, they could be using these applications. So again, take a look at it. This is not a complete list, and I'm sure it's going to be very difficult pretty soon getting a complete list of AI apps. That's how much they're growing. And maybe the next day or next time that you look at it, this could have grown, double or triple, who knows, right? Now, one thing before we get out of this thing here, but or stop talking about the the LLMs or the chat GPTs, one thing to keep in mind though, which I know the reason to put it up here is because a lot of folks thinks interchangeably use GPT and chat GPT. And sometimes even the ones that are part of our field here, you kind of use it. And it brings a smile on my face and saying, okay, guys, watch out. GPT is not the same as Chat GPT. GPT is a large language model, and Chat GPT is a chatbot which is being powered by GPT, right? Like model. So it's an LLM. GPT is an LLM, like GPT-3, 3.5, 4, all that you've talked or heard about. These are all the models. Now, these models are being used by multiple AI applications, right? And ChatGPT is one of them. And ChatGPT came up and used it so well. It's integrated it so well that it's become popular. And ChatGPT is not the only one that is being powered, that chatbot that is being powered by ChatGPT. There are other also chatbots that are out there that are using GPT models as well, and they have a different kind of interface. So again, but ChatGPT is one of the most popular ones. So I just wanted to make sure that we understand the difference between what's GPT versus ChatGPT. So again, before I thought there was another article that I saw that had a code walkthrough for a mini Chat GPT at home. And for the in the interest of time, I'm going to just have this link. But just take a look at that, and you know what? Maybe if are you guys okay to be here for another 15 minutes? Would that be okay with you guys? If you have a hard stop, please don't hesitate to let me know.
I should be close enough for another 15 minutes or so, but
Okay.
probably not longer than that. But yeah.
Actually, we
Okay, let's do this. Let me just go through, cover the rest of the stuff, and then if we get time, I'll kind of show the code. But if not, there's nothing to worry about. All I wanted to show is that, it's few lines of code. You can build the, in Python, you could just pretty much build your own Chat GPT. Mini Chat GPT, of course, right? And I just wanted to show you the code that I ran through it. In fact, even I ran it today as well. I wanted to see if it still works. Of course, I had to make little minor changes here and there, but it worked like a charm because, again, I was using the Hugging Face, library of models, and this particular code tells you which model it was using. But again, it just throws up the ideas. It just shows all the different ways you can build in a very simple form. It's just few lines of code that is builds a mini Chat GPT for you. So that's how it could be done. Again, as Chase had mentioned, we talked about earlier, It's all about computing resources. Your MiniChat GPT is always going to be MiniChat GPT because it's on your computer. So your computer is going to be the key, and your resource is what you have. So if you do not have, days and months of, power and all that, memory and all that stuff, you may not get to that level of, but at least you know how it is built, right? That's what I'm trying to get at. Okay. So the last topic that I had is we can make a difference, right? We talk about all these tools, technologies, and you are going to be at the forefront of it. You're going to be the ones in the trenches working now with this technology. So, this is the most exciting times for you guys, to be part of this nice, huge wave of technologies that you have. But again, think about all the things that you've talked about, that we talked about ethics, about privacy, about all those concerns about bias, discrimination, how your models need to take care of that. And that's going to be huge, right? That's what's going to be the difference between us and the layman, right? When I say us, meaning us, the data scientists, and a future versus others. And we are the ones who could really be the people controlling this so well that, at the best of our, abilities, that we can safeguard this, right? So always keep that in mind. We cannot let this lose, because again, this technology could really boomerang and can become rogue very easily. So we have to take care of that. And again, these are the applications that maybe in future, these are the ones we are going to be depending on. So the more, better predictions and more better decision making we can get out of these applications, the better off the world would be. Okay. So always keep that in mind. Again, so food for thought, how would you take your learning about IVAs forward? What is your plan to practice the knowledge and skills you have learned during this week? Hint, remain curious and keep reading, researching, as I'd mentioned earlier during our, before we started here. That's the key, guys. There's nothing more I can tell you. I mean, yes, there's hundreds of resources, and pretty much you nailed it because you must have researched or gone to some of these places where you can get lots and lots of information. So keep looking to that. Keep looking on internet, on YouTube videos, on all of that. Keep reading. LinkedIn, wherever you get hands-on, keep reading, right? Remain curious as to how things work, why they work in a certain way, what is going on with these technologies. Just be curious. And finally, look for ways to kind of practice these skills, right? And, look for those data sets, look for other ways for practicing your skills. Look for those sandboxes that you can get, whether it's a cloud, public cloud, or whether it's elsewhere. But have a sandbox where you can keep practicing your skills in a very safe and in an easier way. Okay. All right. So before I go on to talk about assignment 4, any questions, guys? Okay.
Not for me.
Okay. So assignment
for me.
Okay. Thank you. So assignment 4 will prepare you to build the Lambda functions using Python, very simple functions, which are given to you, which is in support of a chatbot to book a trip, right? And it provides you a calculator service as well if you want to do the calculations. And so you'll be using AWS Lambda, you'll be using Amazon Lex service, which has the built-in natural language processing NLP capabilities, okay? And all you have to do is just capture a few screenshots while you're going through the process. It's again, a very simple exercise, but as long as you follow the steps accurately, then it's not going to be rocket science. But again, do not wait for the last day, guys, please. And I want to just make sure that you remember and understand that last day is if you're going to be needing any help, it's going to be probably too late to get help at the last minute. So please do not wait for, Tuesday, August 8th. Also, I could be out of pocket for some part of the day and might be traveling as well. So again, if you need any help, please engage AO and Teo in advance as early as possible. take help in the help section, send email to me. I'll try to loop them in. But again, this can only happen if you are, doing your due diligence by Monday and not waiting until Tuesday. Okay. And again, this is like you capture the screenshot and you have an answer sheet for it. So, and as far as the prerequisites go, your introduction to conversation design to Amazon Lex, there's a video, it's a half-an-hour video that you want to just go about just to know what Amazon Lex is. And then, there's a nice tutorial, and it's an introduction and a demo of how to use AWS Lambda and Lex to create a virtual agent. And this is pretty much what you'll be developing, guys. It's a small version of what you'll be seeing here. So, make sure that you kind of gone through this. So there's not much during this week you have to do except for spending an hour watching a couple of videos, and then ensure that for your assignment, you have an assignment instructions file in the package. You have a zip file that has got 2 Python scripts and a book trip code handler for AWS Lex and calculator for AWS Lex.py Python code files. And you have an answer sheet, right? So, and this is the answer sheet that you will be submitting. I do not need the instruction sheet at all. So please use the answer sheet, and it will have the sections for the screenshots. So you'll capture the screenshots, you plug it in there, right? And that's it. And then some of your classmates have already gone through that and found this exercise. They could, just go through it very quickly. And I've not got any questions thus far. So I'm assuming that it's going to be an easy exercise for you, an assignment for you. And this is a rubric, which is, most of it like in 4 parts. And they are kind of mostly equal points, except for, building the calculator intent. But otherwise, it's pretty much similar scores for each of those sections. Okay. So that's pretty much what I wanted to cover today. And now probably opening it up for your questions. But do look into that code that we could not go through in the interest of time. I just skipped it, but it just shows you how to, build your own Python code. And if you can just run it in your, it takes some time. There are certain steps in that code that takes a lot of time. So you cannot, I would not have been able to do it. I was just going to show you the code snippets there. But, again, try it, and you'll definitely be able to work on it and see a MiniChat GPT on your own computer. Okay. All right. So any questions?
No, not for me.
And not for me either. Everything's pretty straightforward.
Oh, excellent. Ayo and Teo, do you guys have anything to add here or any questions?
Yeah, good. Thank you.
Okay.
I'm
Okay.
good. No question.
Alrighty. Okay. Thank you both, and thank you for your help and support. And we'll just need it for a few more days until we end. But I hope you all enjoyed these webinars. You enjoyed the course. Wish you all good luck. And
Certainly.
and in case any of you are taking the Data 490 course later in fall, then I will be teaching that 490 as well. So, I'll look forward to seeing some of you if you are taking it. But I know many of you are also taking 490 at the same time as this particular course here. So that's okay. But I hope you lots of luck, best wishes, and completion of your degree soon. Okay. Take care.
All right.
Good night, guys.
You too.
Right. Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
Thank you very much.